Well, good evening. Welcome to the podcast. It's not a podcast that increasingly looks and smells like a podcast, presented by two middle-aged men trying to deny the fact that they're middle-aged, if nothing else. I am regular EV Dad, aka John, and with me, not a huge surprise, all the way from Chicagoland, it's Joe. How you doing, Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe from JKEV. I'm doing pretty well. How have you been?
Doing better than your door frames. I mean, seriously, it's getting worse. I mean, we used to identify the paint you were going to get, but now you've not just lost the door frames have gone. I'm surviving. It's been one hell of a week. But before we get to me, I want to you are a couple of days back from your road trip, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's a fun future road trips. We're deciding to dismantle the house, sell every piece individually due to the current lumber prices, and go EVing permanently.
Sounds like a plan. So you went through. I can't remind me where you went. I remember you. I went through Montana, but after that it gets a little bit, the middle age.
Right. So since we do not have Teslas, I could not go to Montana from Chicago through either of the Dakotas. So I went south on 80 through Colorado. I went through Estes Park, ran into some pretty rough weather through there. Came up through Wyoming, hit a destination charger there, and then was able to kind of zigzag back to Electrify America and got up to Glacier National Park up by the Canada border. And then the way home was the easy route, just took Electrify America the whole way, all the way down Salt Lake City, Green River, and then back across Nebraska, Iowa. The exciting bits. 4,600 miles total.
Wow, that's I actually had to look at where Glacier National Park was. So I'm guessing at some point, I'm looking at it right now, you did charge up at the Taco Bell in Polson, Montana.
We were very close to a destination charger at Lake McDonald Lodge, so we left it there a couple of nights while we were up there.
Ah, right, okay. Overall, a positive experience?
Yeah, the motorhome we were with blew its motor, but that's their fault for not being electric.
Be nice. Some of us also have 38-foot motorhomes, which are not electric, and are a constant source of drain on my wallet. It would have been cheaper to have done an Angelina Jolie and adopted 20 children than have that one vehicle. I swear. It's been quite a thing. Well, while you were gone, where to start? So I finally got around. I don't think people understand what a ball ache editing is. So the trip I took up to Seattle, up to Squim and back, I finally got the first episode of that published. That went up today, which will be in 2 days from now, I guess, if you're watching this. So it's already up, and there's a link here. Which did feature destination charges, much like yourself. This at a Fairfield hotel on my way up to Portland and then on to Seattle. 3.5 hours it took me to edit that hour and 20 minutes of video, but the scenery was fantastic. I really love the just the driving part of that trip. It was so beautiful. It gets better when we hit the coast in the next episode, so that's the future. But you commented on one of my tweets. So if you saw I did one of my Green Glow chats, episode number 6, where I talked about the Portland trip, and I opened the comedy version of me opened for Kabir Singh, who's currently on America's Got Talent. He's through to the semifinals. And so I did it again, this time at the Alameda Comedy Club in just up here in the Bay. In fact, as soon as you and I finish recording this, I'm off to a dive bar in Fremont to do another show for him. And then the reason you care about this, Joe, got a new series coming out. I haven't got a name yet. It's currently called Comedians in EVs Who Don't Drink Coffee. We're gonna have to work on that and not get sued at the same time. But I'm doing an even bigger show with him. This gets really crazy now. So I'm doing a charity show with him on Saturday I'm going to pick him up and drive him up to the gig, which should be very picturesque because we're going to go over both the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge to get up there to San Rafael. But there's two things. There'll be some content for my video, some content for my channel, but then I'm also turning this into bite-sized content for him, for his social media presence in the lead up to the semi-final. So he's currently needs to generate a lot more Twitter followers. So I'm not going to be doing heavy editing on my own content for a while. I'll be focused on this, but that should be a great video. And then, of course, the minute other comedians, friends of mine who heard about this, like, oh, we want to do this, we want to do this. So the nuts thing is, and we won't know about this for a few days, but and also I don't have permission from my wife. So darling, if you are watching this, I'm kidding, she never watches this. I may be driving to Vegas on Sunday morning to perform at the LA Comedy Club on Sunday night, and then do 2 shows there with Kabir again. It's not a coincidence. And then drive to Reno, which is much like what you did, one of those adventure drives. There isn't the, it's not an EA corridor. So yeah, it's kind of that's yeah, it's the comedy thing is crazy. We'll have to do it. And then I've got another guy on Twitter, a comedian on Twitter, who used to comments on EVs, and I talked to him about my crazy idea I had pre-COVID, which was to I won't bore you with it, but there's this comedy tour that up and coming comedians often do to build out material, get headlining experience. And my plan was to do it in a Tesla back then, but more importantly, to do sort of open mics and impromptu shows at the superchargers, to carry a speaker system in the front and do impromptu shows. And it would have been made great content. Well, might be doing that in an ID4, but that's to come in the future. So we will see. I'm currently working out my EV joke material right now for tomorrow. But yeah, it's been a thing. What else is going on? Oh, hey, thank you, and also anybody else that's watching this, thank you for your comments and suggestions on the new logo for the channel. That's I've sent back my I'm actually going with a version of one of them, but I've asked them for some changes, and actually for 2 different versions. So one that's a rectangle and one's a square. For different purposes. So I'm sure that will announce itself over the coming weeks. It's that, and the fact that I'm in security and the T-Mobile thing is happening, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. It's not been the quietest of weeks. I didn't realize you were going so far north. That's the bit that surprised me. I knew you were going through Montana, and I know we talked about Jackson. Did you go to Jackson?
Yes, I charged downtown Jackson, which is free DC charging, a rare find. But it's just like 45 or 50 kilowatts, but that's great for that location because you kind of want it to be a little bit. I wouldn't have minded if it was even a little slower than that, just because you want time to walk around that town.
You say that now, except when you want it to be quick. You say that now.
Exactly. Or if they had a couple of units, one was slower than the other, that kind of.
That is. Come to California, we have that problem. I can have the fast electric by America if it's working, or I can have the slow EVgo. In fact, let's talk about that. So I thought, whilst we specifically don't do we're not going to do news. I think where there's things that we have experience of, I think when things come up, we should comment on it, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, it's headed that way.
So I was intrigued. Let me put this into some kind of. Let me share my screen with you. So you saw this thing about EVgo changing their pricing system.
Right. I had received an email because they sent out incorrect emails because I'm actually not a member. They sent me an email as if I was, and they corrected it after the fact. So that actually provoked me to dive into what was going on, and I found similar news as you did.
So on that point, let me just say, if you happen to be, if you've got an EV, you don't need an ID4, if you have an EV and you want to have access to EVgo on the cheap, then, and if you happen to be insured with AAA, then just Google AAA and EVgo, and you can actually get access to the members rates without having to pay a monthly membership. You get it on the pay-as-you-go benefit, but you get the thing. There are some benefits to being Californian, but this actually applies to all AAA across the country. But you do need to have an EVgo account already set up. So just a thing. But what they're talking about right now, which is interesting. First of all, they've done a certain amount of harmonization to their program. Second part is that they have set up a rewards program, also known as a loyalty program. You know, with the thing being that you get 5 points per dollar and the opportunity to earn free sessions. By the way, if you're giving somebody money, something for free later, it's not free.
Exactly.
I can feel my grandfather, you know, tapping me on the shoulders. But what is interesting is in California, and then one assumes, so they're harmonizing onto this, you know, kilowatt hour pricing and not time-based pricing, which, to be fair, I think is the fairest way of doing these things. It is rather frustrating to be paying by the minute when you've ramped down to 20 kilowatts. But they're going to go to this time of use in California thing with per minute rates at between 12 and 8, and then on peak between 4 and 9, and off peak 8 till 4 and 9 till 12. Look, I'm going to go on a rant in a second. So before we do that, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I just think that it's another way for them to make money, because how many people are really charging in the middle of the night? And that's when they're going to get the beneficial rate. Obviously, they're going to charge a very absurd, you know, surcharge fee on the rush hour time slots, which is when most people are probably charging. So, I mean, I understand it, but I also think it's just a game. I mean, no different than the reward program. Their goal is, their idea is that people will build up a free charge, not redeem it, and they just kept themselves more more profit in the end.
Well, let me add some nuance and then some rant on the as a tail ender to it. First of all, they're a public company now, so you know their days of just running at losses continuously are over. They have to show a return on what is a sizable, and some would joke, a already outdated investment strategy. Also, if you look at their business model, they don't, for the most part, EVgo is not what you would call a it doesn't support networks. It's not it doesn't do trunk routing. It's all inner city. But let me just throw up PlugShare for a second, and let's go to filters, and let's lose the other stuff, and let's just go with EVgo. And you know, first of all, you know, this is their network. I don't think I've got any power things on here. No. Yeah, all normal. So this is the EVgo network. Not much of a network, but notice how, for the most part, it is all. You have to assume. Oh, look, it's a Sam's Club in Bentonville. I'm sure they had a lot of choice about where to locate that one. But you know, with the exception of, you know, this was like their original own and really only their network trunk link where they supported 99 down, the alternative to 5. Because bear in mind, we only had EA chargers. We've actually only had EA chargers working on the Northern California section consistently for 2 months. Kalinga went up, which kind of completed it, and then it was only up and running for a few weeks before they shut it down again to install more units. But apparently they had to shut it down to expand it. EVgo is a very residential. This is the original network. So you could buy a Nissan Leaf back when I had my i4. So this is like 2012 or so. And the whole thing is you've got free charging, and you could go all the way from Santa Cruz all the way to Tahoe. Now, you had to do quite a few charges to do that.
At about an 80-mile usable range.
Right, but you could do it. And I've seen there were reviews back in the day of people doing this. It was called Charge the Bay program, and the infrastructure still exists. Whenever I go to Santa Cruz to do gigs, I still drive past the EVgo that's there on the top of 17, where the fires were a couple of years ago. That EVgo is still there, but for the most part, it's not a they're not supporting trunk routes. It's residential. It's urban residential, and so yeah, maybe to speak to their points here, you will have control of when you're going to charge, maybe at the weekend, or like some people will do. Oh well, I'll go to Whole Foods. There's a lot of EVgos at Whole Foods in California, and actually in Colorado as well. So maybe you'll time it better. I will say I find this rather amusing. Down here in the very last paragraph, 800 public with speeds from 50 to 350. Now, I happen to know where one of those 350s is, because it's literally where I'm going tonight. It's in Fremont off of Maori, which is, if you care, people, it's right next to Kirby Sports Bar where I'll be performing. But watch this, my friend. This is why I think it's less than honest. Where's that?
EVgo bragging about 350 kilowatt is like the Mustang Mach-E bragging about 150 kilowatt charging.
So it is
a very small part of the time.
Well, allegedly they've got quite a few 70s, and but these are all shared things. But when we get to, so they're claiming, so like this one here in Alameda, and if we got space, I'll put a link to it. News Cool actually did a review on this site, and these are the new units, but these are 200 kilowatt shared. So yes, each one of those can pull 200 kilowatts, but apparently there's even a header across what all 4 units can actually pull. And these are very rare devices. This is the one that was installed. This was the one that's new. And this was originally installed to test buses. This got some California money to support it. And you'll notice the design is a little bit kludgy. This was a first generation more than 100. It's a little bit weird. I'm looking at these. These are the newer units. These have been installed fairly recently, because they didn't show up on my map a while ago. But then once you get out of here, this was one of their other 100.
Is that Baker?
Yeah, the thermometer. I think everyone's seen this one in every, this is their go-to image, as it were. Then I know you've got the ones in Colorado. So these have been upgraded to support 100, because only one of these was 100 when I passed through a couple of months ago. But yeah, it's not a network. What I do find interesting, and if you go to Clean Technica's article where they talk about this, they actually show the power bill for one of their stations in New York, and how the cost of energy, the taxes, their delivery system, they have to pay for the just connectivity at a different rate, and then on top of that, demand charges. They got an uphill battle building a business out of this. They really do. They only paid $466 in electric charges and fees, but because of everything else, they had to pay $2,300. I mean, the energy companies, I don't see. Well, I'm going to joke and say you don't see Chevron and Tech, and everybody else putting the prices up when there's a shortage. Yeah, that's not true. They don't do that, Joe. They don't do that. They just schedule maintenance on refineries or something else like that. Allegedly. I speak with no authority or knowledge on the matter. I'm doing this purely for satire. First Amendment rights, not American, but happy to use it. You can sue me in Britain. I haven't got any money there. I haven't got any money here either with that. But yeah, it's interesting. We'll see how. Because they're doing this because they're now a listed company. And at the same time, it's well known that Electrify America is looking to get an investor. They're looking for somebody to put $1 billion into the business. So, this is a business with a very, very long tail, it has to be said. In other news that isn't really news, we should do as an advisory. I did see this. So an advisory came out from Inside EV that if you do have an ID4, and this would actually apply to anyone else who gets a package that includes charging with Electrify America, free charging or discount charging, you need to select your program as a default. Apparently, this person was running around and they were paying for their bill because they hadn't selected the correct package. So this is something people have to be aware of. I mean, when I set up, probably the same as you, I paid my $10, which I was like, I don't intend to give you any money, but apparently this is the rules. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Unfortunately, dealers just don't do a good enough job of explaining everything to the customer when they buy the car. They're so quick to sell the car. That's their number one goal. Dealers could go a long way if Volkswagen provided like a step-by-step sheet to each dealer to essentially hand to each customer when because like for my dealer, they're like, oh, here's the code, wrote it down and handed it to me. Have a good day.
Yeah, and I was fine with that, but I don't think you and I are the typical use case for the thousands of vehicles that they're wanting to sell.
Right.
And it's not just going to be ID4s either. The Kyle had a version of this issue with the Mustang, where it was actually, and they had the plug and play issue where plug and play worked, but once they'd blown through their 250 kilowatts of energy they got with the car, then it stopped working. So clearly that EA has a little bit of simplification to do at some point. And then we've got other cars coming out right now. I believe the Ioniq, we'll talk about that in a second, but the Ioniq 5 has got, the new Ioniq, I can't remember if it's the 5 or 6 now, has got, comes with 2 years free charging as well. So this is something their users are going to have to live with. But
yep, and I believe Lucid does as well, but I'll give Lucid the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure they're probably explaining this properly to their customers at that price point.
Or to their customers, people who charge their cars.
Yeah.
Did you see the video of the Rimac versus the Tesla Plaid that came out this week?
It came across my feed. I haven't watched it yet.
I won't surprise you. I won't ruin the ending for you, but the $2.3 million hybrid car wins. Just in case.
Spoiler alert.
A little bit, yeah. But the fossil companies are moving, and so this was a tweet that was highlighted by Kyle at Out of Spec. A gentleman by the name of Lang Reynolds is taking on a role as director of public charging for North America for Circle K. This gives me hope. We don't have a lot of Circle K's over on my side of the country, but I know you have more of them. But if you see that, pardon me, John's always tired. Yes, John works bloody too hard. I'm still getting over the medication, weaning myself off the meds and the pneumonia. But if you saw Bourne's video in the Audi GT, where he goes to the Circle K to charge up, and how lovely that gas station was with EV, pull through charging, windscreen cleaners, soap and water, trash. I mean, just imagine that, getting an Electrify America with a trash collector. That's always a happy thing. But then he sat down and had food, and it was good food. It wasn't Flying J fried and kept on the heat lamps. It was freshly prepared. I mean, you've been through the chargers in not Pennsylvania, Ohio, the service locations where EA is operating. I mean, I'd pay for that. I'd be happy to go to a Circle K to get my ions on a road trip if it was a pleasant experience.
I haven't been through Ohio yet, but yeah, certainly a couple charging stations stick out in this trip. There was one at a Flying J. I mean, in general, that sort of situation is great because there's garbage, there's windshield washer fluid, there's usually some restaurant of some sort in there. And I think that's where kind of in the future, there's going to be an opportunity for lots of fast casual restaurants to open up at these strategic locations where chargers are.
So you can get something good to eat while you're watching the impromptu comedy act that's being performed in Bay 4. Absolutely. I'm with you there, my friend. I'm with you there. I was actually...
Or find some fruit to throw, or vegetables.
Harsh. Being heckled on my own podcast is not a podcast. I was actually, one of the things I really liked was the fact that this gentleman, Will Torr from the Colorado Energy Office, said they'd love to talk to him about their Colorado stores. I thought, you know what? Good. That's a good thing. It's nice to see these things. It really is. So I thought, let's finish. Go on.
I was going to say, there was a lot of people that talked about Toyota for a long time saying, Toyota was holding on to the hybrid as the end all be all, that's the best vehicle ever made. And they had talked about if Toyota doesn't get their act together and start producing an electric vehicle, they'll just get left behind. And some brands, unfortunately, will be by their negligence to produce an EV. And arguably, you can make the same case for the fueling stations that, Circle K seems to be jumping on, saying they're going to be ready for this transition. But, as Mobile, Road Ranger, Flying J, all these other brands, at some point, they're going to need to make a decision about their future business projections.
No, absolutely. We've gone some way with having roaming between different service providers, EVgo, ChargePoint, and others. But absolutely, this is that read up on your creative destruction.
Yep, I'm sure I'll need a Circle K app and RFID card.
I have no doubt. Let's finish with one last piece of excitement. It's not as if we didn't know it was going to happen. But Tom over at the charging at State of Charge tweeted, let me see if I can play it, an Ioniq 5 being delivered in New York from the looks of it. I'm sure that is a press car that's going to be doing the rounds. But yeah, great to see that vehicle arriving on the shores, it has to be said.
Yeah, I mean, that shows that they are well into the beta stage or very close to production. If
oh no, this is in full. This is in full. You can buy this in Europe. This is in full production, my friend. The issue has been, getting them imported over here. you know, they have to, you know, they always have to tweak things for the American market for modulation and standards. That's why we don't get the fancy taillights on the ID4 that they do in Europe.
It is quite unfortunate that a rule that'll needs to be adjusted.
But no, I'm looking for I'm looking forward to seeing this. I really am. I got to see one being driven past me in camo a while ago, but I wasn't allowed to, wouldn't even stop. But it is it's smaller than our vehicle, but technically it's got more space in it. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, how they've done that, how they've created that.
Yeah, this one, I mean, even though the Kia EV6 is pretty much the same vehicle, the styling on this one does it a lot more for me. It kind of looks like an old Golf, but that got proofed in the oven a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to articulate it. It really is. I suppose the last thing this week, which I forgot to mention, is Polestar announced their their long range and lower priced version. This is basically going to be the same price as you, well, not yours, but mine, my first edition. This is going to come in at 47,000. So after you get your rebates, if you're in California and you can take $11,000 to $13,000 off this becomes pretty compelling.
Yeah, this is going to undercut the price of the XC40 Volvo, which this is a much better car in my opinion. Yeah,
the only thing I'm annoyed at is that they made the single motor front wheel drive, not rear wheel drive. But you know, lift off oversteer isn't as much fun as actual oversteer. Not that Volvos let you do that too often. I mean, no, it's not a Volvo, it's a Polestar. A Polestar should let you oversteer. That's my point. It absolutely should. That little square blue badge of happiness means, you know, hooligan on board. But 265 miles of real world range. We know it'll do 250 already. This is a good thing. So, as I'm the only person that agrees with that, anything else? Have you got any more? Have you got any trips coming up, or are you just editing? What videos can we expect from your channel?
Yeah, a lot of editing. I have the trip to come up. I'll have to do. At some point, I want to just do a deep dive review of the car. I've really never posted anything along those lines. And then I hope to start eventually getting a hold of some other brands EVs, but it's kind of hard to add things to my schedule, and my schedule is already busy with normal life, you know.
No, absolutely. Well, look, I'm gonna say thank you as ever for doing this. If you haven't subscribed to either my channel, Regular EV Dad, or Joe's channel, JKEV, there is a link in the description. Subscribe; it helps us immensely. It means that our content is put in front of more people because they look like you. That's how the Google algorithm, the YouTube algorithm works. Like, share, and by the way, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. Put it in the comments. That's what they're there for. Let us know what you want to hear more about.
And let me know if you want doors in the future podcast.
Well, yeah, and if you have any interior design ideas for Joe's office, those things are always welcome. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. If you have been, thanks for watching. It's greatly appreciated. And Joe, I will see you at some point soon.
Take care.